It is about 5 after, so let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you everyone for your time. I appreciate it very much. I know how busy everyone is. We've got some fun information today to share, and hopefully everyone finds it effective. Please use that chat, though, and let me know if you've got specific questions, and we'll try to tailor the discussion best we can and make sure that we answer any questions you may have. Just wanted to start off as we're going here. If you notice that when you dialed into the conference today, you were not prompted to enter a conference ID. Everyone should have just dropped right in, and that's a much faster way to start a call, and that can be one of the things we talk about. It's one of the things we call VIP accounts, and it's really nice for executive calls and also staff meeting calls when you want to have the call start very quickly. So why don't we get started? And first of all, we're going to just go through a quick introduction and tell you a little bit about who I am, and then we're going to jump right into 5 key ways to conduct more effective meetings. As the research was done, a lot of surprises came up with this webinar, so I think it's going to be pretty interesting. And then we'll have time, hopefully, for questions at the end. All right, well, let's jump into things. Just a little bit about me. I am the president here at Adigo Conferencing. My background in the industry goes back over a decade, and I used to be proud of that fact, but as I don't know about any of you on the phone, as you get older, boy, when you start talking decades, that has kind of a different feel to it. Anyway, I've started a number of different businesses, and then within Adigo, where this kind of fits in this webinar, is within productivity. And we really started that focus a couple of years ago in trying to improve within conferencing and other aspects of a business how to increase productivity, and really today that's what we're going to be focusing on. So what did the research say? Well, it was surprising to me, and if any of you have done any research and can chime in here, let me know. Send a chat in again on that right side. As if some of you are just joining in now, know that the chat column on your right is private, and so no one else is going to see that. But tell me what your role is, what kind of meetings you have, and what some of the challenges you face are. One of the things we did was really scoured different areas to try to understand best practices. We looked within productivity content, leadership content. There are, as you may know, a lot of meeting gurus out there. We did interviews and other things. But what we found was a little surprising, at least to us, and that is most of the research was fairly generic. In other words, it was not meeting specific. And what we feel like, we know that within our client base and across the board, there are so many different types of meetings. And just as an example, a brainstorming conference call or virtual meeting is going to function and needs to have very different requirements than an executive meeting. And so what we wanted to do today was focus specifically on staff meetings. Felt like because the audience today is quite varied and coming from different functional groups within different companies, felt like undoubtedly all of you probably attend a staff meeting on a somewhat regular basis, or perhaps even host one. If you do host staff meetings, send me a chat. Let me know. That would be interesting to hear whether you do any of the things that we're going to suggest or find any pain points consistent with what we bring up. But what we did was we then narrowed our findings down to 5 key items from 5 different experts. First of all, though, what is not effective? And I still get a kick. I've read this comic strip a number of times already, I have to admit, but I still get a kick out of it, especially the pane on the top row on the very right. I couldn't understand most of the attendees because they were on speakerphones in rooms with bad acoustics, and I imagine that has happened to almost everyone. So, you know, it's crazy that still that's an issue. If you like that, then, you know, check out this blog, and there's some other funny stuff in it. So some of you are sending in chats. I appreciate that. We'll take a look at that as we go on. Thank you. What's the second thing I think most people complain about, and that is, you know, just not engaging people, and you have a feeling that on the other side of the phone, what are people doing? Hopefully no one on this call is sleeping yet, since we're just getting started, but we all know it does happen. So what do we need to do to prevent that? Well, first of all, for a staff meeting, I think it's especially challenging because people are easily distracted. There are, you know, an emphasis in today's busy world on multitasking, and people get distracted. And tendency in a staff meeting, I think even more so than other types of meetings, to get off track. So, tell me what you think. I'm getting some chats. What disengages you if you are either attending a staff meeting or participating in or hosting one? And send me a chat. You can just include the numbers 1 through 5. If the biggest problem you have is not staying on track, just shoot me a 1. If you hate it when there's no agenda, send in a 2, etc. And we'll take a vote, and we'll see what people on the call today have as pet peeves. I'll just take a second here and let people think about it. A couple of different ones coming in now, so it's definitely varied. Okay, well, quite a few different ones, and interestingly, nothing that was across the board for everyone. So people have a lot of different issues, which is interesting. So thanks for chiming in there, everyone. Appreciate the comments. So let's keep going. Some of the other things people said was, you know, icebreakers. Definitely that can be a challenge, like with brainstorming meetings and things like that. With staff meetings, we're going to actually come to that specifically in one of the things that we talk about. First of all, what are some things that everyone probably would agree on as a no-brainer? First, do a web conference. When you're talking about multitasking and getting people not to be distracted, give them something visual to look at. And don't just do an audio call. Have a web conference similar to what we're doing now. It can be very easy. It doesn't have to include a lot of slides like we're doing, but at least something to engage people. And what's also nice is, just as you're sending in chats to me, you can use a similar chat pane to manage the speaker queue. So again, for a staff meeting specifically, typically at least at some point you're going to go around the room, if you will, and have different people chime in. A nice way to do that is to utilize that chat so that you can either tell people or allow people to select when they want to chime in. All right. According to the experts, there was quite a bit of feedback around the following areas. But this is not what we included in our top 5, quite frankly, because we thought they were controversial and often would depend on the culture within the company. So tell me what you think. For example, one of the suggestions almost across the board kind of gets back to one of the chats earlier about breaking the ice, was take 5 minutes at the beginning of the call. Build some relationship. I was surprised at how many times some of the experts said, have someone share a personal story. Well, I found that a little controversial. Sometimes, I know in some cultures, that just would not be appropriate. But in other cases, maybe in a smaller company, that could very well build a lot of rapport and be quite effective. So I wanted to hear from you folks. If you've got comments on any of these, let me know. The second one I also wanted to kind of talk about just for a minute here, and that involved self-muting. And just to make sure everyone is aware of what we're talking about here. For example, on the call right now, everyone is muted, and that's called hard muted. So you don't have the ability to speak up. But on many calls, that could be a setting that the host controls, and so they may allow everyone to be unmuted, but to have be the personal choice of each participant to allow themselves to self-mute them or not. One of the things that came up for sure was if you allow self-muting, you're going to dramatically lower the interaction, no matter what. So again, for a staff meeting, typically you want that highly interactive. It might be appropriate not to allow people to self-mute. Of course, number 4, shorter the better, but again, that's not always possible when there's a lot of work to get through.